Hello friends, Jenkins here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, and this video is of course going to be the patch analysis video for 7.21. So in general, we have melee creeps, gold bounty was reduced, and then ranged creeps, upgrade cycle gold bounty increased from 3 to 6. So essentially later on into the game, creeps are still going to give you just as much farm via the ranged creeps, but the melee creeps are going to give you a little bit less in the early game, maybe trying to take a little bit of the focus away from controlling the creeps in the laning phase. They do this every time, change the gold and experience from creeps, and it still always becomes about the creeps. Replaced the primary jungle's ancient camps with big camps. I would say this is actually a buff to the mid lane because this is the area that the mid laner comes over and is going to farm because it's very close, and the fact that it's a big camp means that a lot of mid laners can farm it earlier. Having two ancient camps is honestly kind of useless, so this is a buff to like any jungle farming hero. Heroes no longer gain 25% of their primary attributes. A bit of a nerf to like all the stat items in Dota. That's kind of fair, just because it's like these items. Everybody's getting Sange and Yashas, multiple Sanges, Wraith Bands, etc. All heroes' primary attribute growth values increased by 15%. So basically, that's to make up for it, and then health per strength increased to 20. So everybody gets the same amount of HP now. So yeah, essentially nerf to like all the stat items. XP required to reach level 7 to 12 has been increased just to be a little bit more on each level. So, that's not that big of a deal. It's more like, okay, we're going to be a little bit centered more around the early game. If like a hero gets ahead, gets level 8, gets level 9, they're not just going to decimate people and get a bunch of kills and then, get to level like 12 super quickly and snowball. So a little bit of like counter snowballing mechanisms there. So they've increased movement speed on a bunch of heroes, but we'll talk about it when we get to the actual heroes. Tier 2 tower, all of the, basically like everything after tier 2 has had an increase in armor, minus like the range barracks. So just making it a little bit slower to siege high ground, because people are kind of pushing high ground super early nowadays and even going throne. And then we have the tower protection, armor bonus has been increased, so it's like easier to it's easier to defend these towers because you're going to get a bunch of armor from them. So items, flying courier, increased movement speed, small change, less courier kills. Eon Disc, status resistance active to 75%. That's not a big deal because the active doesn't last very long. The recipe being reduced does definitely matter, but once again, the cooldown's very long, and the active buff doesn't really do all that much for the item. So it's going to be good if there's a lot of burst heroes in the meta, and not because of these changes. Battle Fury, percentage damage bonus is now Quelling Blade. That item was way too good, so that's honestly a good thing. Bloodstone, Blood Pact from 60% of current mana to 30% of max mana. Honestly, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, unless this means that it's not going to take this mana from you, then that's kind of good because that makes the active actually good, but the active is currently awful, and if it still takes the mana from you, it's just not that great of an item. Very few heroes go that item. Bloodthorn, cooldown reduced to back what it was before it got nerfed before. People haven't been picking up that item, so I can see why they buffed it. Boots of Travel, movement speed increased a little bit, which is, once again, this item, I think people are going to still go for it at the same pace. It's just a great late game item and doesn't really provide much with that new TP slot added to the game. So Buckler armor has been, the bonus duration has been reduced to be the same as Mech. That item, everybody's getting an early Buckler. These like super efficient early game items are definitely going to get nerfed. Crimson Guard nerfed just because like everybody's getting them. Vlad as well, I'm assuming we're going to see a nerf. Drums of Endurance, passive change so that it's now 20 movement speed to yourself only and not a 6% movement speed aura. It's hard to say how this is going to change the item. But it's still pretty, it's a nice change. The percentage base movement speed isn't that great when it's kind of like an early game item, and you wouldn't have a lot of well, number one, it sucks on any hero that doesn't have high base movement speed, and then like you wouldn't have a lot of base movement speed items at that time too. So it's kind of a weird point to get the Drums of Endurance, but now it's got the flat movement speed, so that is definitely good, but it's to yourself only. Ethereal Blade, now increased duration. Nobody picks up that item. I still think they probably won't because that's not that big of a deal. If they change the damage or the stats on it, they would definitely, people would start building that item. Eul Scepter also changed to a flat movement speed. Looks like every item is basically being changed to have a flat movement speed, just so that way it doesn't really matter at what point you pick it up. It's still going to be the exact same thing. Holy Locket now uses Energy Booster. That's, minor buff. Unfortunate that like the Voidstone gives you mana regen, the Energy Booster doesn't. I think the mana regen was definitely a pretty nice Pretty nice component to that. Iron Branch, can't cast Rage increased, whatever. Manta Style bonus movement speed reduced because that item's broken. Mask of Madness, Lifesteal increased to 20% because that item has been like super under not picked up. Mechanism stack limit is now tied to cooldown on cast like Greaves and Crimson stack mechanics. I think that essentially means if you pick up like any cooldown reduction, you can mech will benefit from that. But it's really such a small deal because any of the cooldown reduction is going to come late in the game, and Mechanism is like an early game item. Meteor Hammer, radius increased. This is a pretty big deal in my opinion. This item was already pretty good. We saw a meta where everybody was building it, and having the increased radius means that you can like hit towers from out of range, for example, without getting in tower aggro range or vision. It's really nice. Necronomicon, last will damage increased. Pretty small deal. People don't really kill that Necro. Nullifier duration increased from 5 to 6. That's a pretty big deal because that item is like an insane late game item, especially if you pick up an upgraded Bloodthorn that's now good in this patch, potentially good. Phase Boots now gives the damage, and Power Treads gives the attack speed, kind of back to the usual. But the movement speed bonus from Phase Boots is 20 to 22%. So I think that's pretty good. I think melee heroes like already were picking up a lot of Phase Boots, and now it gives damage and then increased movement speed. Like this is a pretty big buff to Phase Boots, and the armor is a little bit more, and armor is already very effective. Sonic Yasha, movement speed reduced from 35 to 30. Everybody's getting that item, much needed nerf. Solar Crest, of course, movement speed is now flat. Spirit Vessel now deals more damage, putting it more into like a damage dealing item, which is exactly what they did in the previous patch as well. And then bonus movement speed is now flat as well. Tranquil Boots active form increased, but the disabled form is reduced. So now it's like, this item's gonna make you run real fast. If it's if they're green, but if they're brown, you're kind of fucked. Nerf to Pudge. Vladimir's Offering no longer uses a headdress, which was a really nice build up and component to it, and it also requires a 525 gold recipe now. So it's a little bit worse. This item is definitely still going to be pretty good, just because I think with the nerf to stat items and stuff, these kind of alternative efficient items are going to be really good. But with the 525 gold recipe, you might see people picking up like Dominator and stuff. Windlace, movement speed bonus, 6% to flat, same thing. Yasha nerfed, Yasha and Kai nerfed in terms of movement speed. So heroes, Abaddon, Curse of Avernus. Curse is up to 4.5 seconds. That's not that big of a deal, but in my opinion, the Aphotic Shield mana cost being reduced to 100 is a big deal, because this hero just lanes by spamming out that ability, so that's definitely really good for him. Alchemists, like, it seems like Alch got nerfed. Base movement speed increased, and the agility increased, and base attack time got increased, but he wasn't really attacking. Like, that's not how people played Alch. But the Unstable Concoction talent is now -7 seconds instead of -8, and that was a big talent that made this hero amazing, because you'd just be able to spam that out. And then also the fact that level 20 was base damage instead of max meant that like this ability would do a fuckload of damage even if you didn't channel it a lot, and then you could have a second one as soon as you stun with the first one. But now that's like that build is nerfed, and that was like the only thing that was powerful on Alch, so that's a rough life for him. Chilling Touch damage increased slightly. Ice Vortex, mana cost has been reduced. These aren't really that big of a deal in my opinion. It takes him a long time to max these spells out, and then level 25 talents on a support, kind of fucking useless. Anti-Mage, they fixed a bug where for some reason counterspell is providing double magic resistance, so thank God for that, because that hero was very strong, and that was very annoying to deal with. Arc Warden now does more damage with Spark Wraith, which I don't know why. That hero was already pretty good. Tempest double duration has been increased, so I don't know what the hell they're thinking. That's probably going to be a very broken hero, considering it was a good hero before. Bane and Feeble attack speed slow has been increased, which nobody really cared about. Mana cost has been reduced. Once again, nobody's using this in the early game, so having this lower doesn't matter that much. The base armor the armor gained at level 10 on the talent is better, and then the Fiend's Grip duration is increased. So Bane is definitely good, because of this Fiend's Grip duration. Like 1 extra second on an already good stun is going to be good, but these other changes are relatively minor, just given what he wants to do. Batrider, I'm like 100% sure this hero's broken now. Firefly now grants a movement speed bonus, so the duration has been reduced and the cooldown has been reduced to essentially be like roughly the same downtime, but now you get this movement speed bonus on a hero that just drags people out of fights. Like, it's actually insane that you get movement speed on Batrider. This hero is going to be very powerful in my opinion. He was already quite good. Beastmaster, inner beast attack speed has been reduced. The Hawk health is no longer gargantuan. I don't know why it was in the first place. And then level 15 talent is now 65 wild axes damage instead of the boar damage. Boar is doing a little bit too much. And then the boar damage has been added to the level 20 talent, and the Hawk cooldown. The 25 talents have been changed, but that doesn't really matter. People don't really get to level 25 in Dota that often unless the experience has been changed, which it hasn't. So essentially, I think Beastmaster is still good. I think you know the Hawk is like the big nerf. Everything else doesn't. It's like side grades. But the Hawk is a big nerf, and who cares though? Because nobody was killing it because it's invis anyway. So Bloodseeker base movement speed increased by 5. This is great for him because he gets percentage increase to movement speed from his thirst. So any base movement speed on him is going to be incredibly effective. Bounty Hunter, Shuriken Toss reduced to the cooldown. Junata Gold Steel is now higher, more memes on Bounty Hunter. Track critical strike damage has been increased, which is going to be good for carry Bounty Hunter or any sort of core Bounty Hunter. I think this hero was already relatively good, a bit of a meme hero, but there were, you know, some top 100 players that were picking him and having success with it, so I think they'll be happy to see that, and the hero might be, you know, decent. Brewmaster, Drunken Brawler now sucks, but in terms of the crit damage, but the Cinder Brew now the duration has been reduced, but it refreshes on ignition, so you can just keep hitting it on somebody. So I think there's actually a buff to Brewmaster. I think Cinder Brew being a terrible ability is just bad for him. Like, you just have one ability that's almost completely useless, and now that it can actually keep refreshing itself, if I'm reading this correctly, that seems like it's not going to be a useless ability. And then Drunken Brawler obviously still going to be great because at max out, it's still going to do 260% damage. So Bristleback, Viscous Nasal Goo mana cost has been reduced to 12. It's been halved. So this ability, like, they really want people to get this early. I definitely think there's a big buff to him. Like, this being 25 mana has been a huge bane of his existence for a long time. Broodmother now does more damage with the Spawn Spiderlings talent that nobody ever got, and level 15 talent is now 15 agility. Nobody ever got this talent either. And the level 20 and 25 talent that nobody gets, those have been buffed as well, so that doesn't matter. But those 10 and 15 talents are definitely good. People are going to start going for those. Centaur, Bug, where Retaliate was gaining charges while active. Just a pretty good nerf to him. The hero's still going to be great. Chaos Knight, Chaos Strike cooldown reduced to 4. Lifesteal has been reduced, but it's increased at max level. And then the max damage from the Chaos Strike is now 265% at max level, so a little bit of a buff. Reality Rift, the slow duration has been increased, and the slow has been kind of just changed a little bit. I would say that this hero, these aren't big enough changes to make him good. Like, his win rate is so atrociously low, unless there's like a role that I'm not thinking about that he might be played in, like potentially as a 4 or something like that, then, you know, maybe it's going to be okay, but there's definitely going to be other heroes that are better in that role. Chen, Divine Favor, bonus damage has been reduced, but now you can get double bonus damage on non-hero units. The duration has been increased, the mana cost has been reduced, and so it's, I don't know, this weird thing where they want Chen to gank with creeps and give them damage or something like that, which nobody's giving a fuck about the creep spell right now, so maybe that's not that big of a deal. Hand of God has now been increased in terms of its healing. This is pretty good because remember, healing doesn't like factor in armor, so if you heal somebody 50 HP and they have like 1,000,000 armor, that's a lot more effective HP than just 50. Then the talents have essentially been changed, so Divine Favor cooldown reduction is only 7 seconds because it's been duration increased, and then the 25 talents have been changed, but it doesn't really matter. Chen doesn't get level 25. Klink's level 15 talent, 20% evasion to 15 strength to make up for the fact they took away his basically all of his strength gain and base strength. So this is definitely decent for him, but it's still going to be a bad hero. Clockwork, Battery Assault, Cast Point has been removed. This is a huge deal. This makes Support Clock a lot better. Rocket Flare mana cost being reduced from 50 to 35 to 50. This is great for him because he had mana issues. And then 20 talent is now True Sight on Rocket Flare, which is amazing because 25 takes so long to get to. And then 50% magic resist at level 25. I think Clockwork's actually going to be quite good. He wasn't that bad in the last patch. Crystal Maiden, Freezing Field now grants you 10 bonus armor while channeling, and Arcane Aura now gives less to people but more to herself. That's a pretty like non-factor change. I think that's a pretty non-factor change, like especially because the base like mana regen works differently than when she was good before. So it's you know, this is kind of like a new hero. And then Freezing Field giving 10 bonus armor is definitely good. She's you know, just sitting there vulnerable, squishy. It's kind of like Monkey King ult now. Dark Willow, Bramble Maze mana cost has been reduced, and the cooldown has been reduced. I think this is not going to be enough to make the hero very strong because people aren't really like, you know, spamming out the Bramble Maze to do damage or something like that. 25-second cooldown is still very long. Dazzle, Poison Touch, mana cost has been increased. The Shadow Wave has been reduced, the range. Thank God, this hero has been strong for so long. Death Prophet, base damage increased by 3. This is like one of the lowest win rate heroes in the game, so this probably won't be enough to make her great, but it's something. Disruptor base armor increased by 1. Hero's pretty awful, so that's probably not enough. Doom, Scorched Earth cooldown has been reduced to 35 and basically minus 5 seconds. And then the health regen has been reduced as well. Kind of like non-factor change. I think you know, people already were not trying to kill Dooms in the lane. Like I think reducing this health regen by 1 is not going to do much for his unkillability. This is honestly a slight buff to Doom. Dragon Knight base movement speed increased by 10, which is great because the dragon form gives you movement speed too. Health, the regen from Dragon Blood has been increased for some reason. The Elder Dragon form attack slow has also been increased. This is very strange to me because this hero is this hero is picked a lot, you know, and then level 20 talent is now plus 25 strength, so he gets more damage and fighting early, and then the 2x Dragon Blood is 25. A lot of people were skipping this though because he was already so tanky, and with how armor scales now, it's you don't need that much armor to be, you know, 70% physical resist. This is a buff to Dragon Knight. That's so strange to me. Drow Ranger 15 talent has been changed from 25 attack speed to 10 agility. That's such a minor change. Earthshaker mana cost on the Fissure has been reduced. This is great for roaming Shaker. You can buy less clarities. Mana boots are just going to do a lot. Honestly, you maybe don't even need any you know, sort of mana boots or soul rings or anything like that, just because going Tranquil Boots Blink would be enough with just clarities, and this really helps out with that. Earth Spirit rolling boulder damage has been reduced slightly. The boulder smash slow, which for some reason was 80%, which is essentially a goddamn stun, is now 60%, which is great. Still think this hero is going to be amazing just because of how much HP he has and how much damage he does, and how his rolling boulder is a 2-second stun on a 4-second cooldown, which is absolutely ridiculous. 15 talent has been reduced from 200 rolling boulder damage to 150. Good nerf. Elder Titan talent, reduced movement speed. They changed a lot of movement speeds in this game, in this patch, just because they gave a bunch of heroes movement speed as well. So Ember Spirit, Sleight of Fist cooldown has been reduced significantly in the early level, so it's no longer completely awful. This is great for him because people would leave 1 point in that ability, and the base damage has been increased. This helps his laning a lot, and more of a physical kind of hero now. Enchantress, enchant cooldown. This is a huge buff in my opinion. The cooldown has been reduced to 22 seconds. So now the duration is 26 seconds. So it's pretty bad at level 1, but you get level 2, and then you essentially can have 2 creeps up at once, which you couldn't even have look at this. It was so bad at level 2 before, and even if you leveled it up, you'd still have a 40-second cooldown on it. It was awful. But now 18-second cooldown. This is one of the only good purges in Dota. One of the only goddamn purges that's not just awful. So having a purge on such a low cooldown, and it slows as much as a venomous gale. So this is really, really good. And then the mana cost has been reduced as well, so you can just spam it out. Not that she has mana issues, but you know, she did get nerfed in terms of mana cost, so this will definitely help out there. So I think Enchantress is going to be quite good. I honestly do. This purge is fucking amazing, and they made it minus 30-second cooldown or something like that. It's insane. Enigma, Midnight Pulse rescaled from 75 to 50 mana at level 1. It's a slight buff to him. He's not really struggling with mana. Faceless Void, time dilation has been increased in AoE. The 10 talent gives more strength. Nobody would really go for that anyway because that's some pussy shit. Faceless Void, 15 talent from 300 health to 1 second time walk cooldown, which is pretty cool. That's way more interesting than just HP, especially when you get strength at level 10. I think that's definitely a pretty big buff to him. I thought he was already a good hero. Grimstroke has been pretty nerfed. The Ren damage on Phantom's Embrace has been nerfed. Ink Swell has been increased in mana cost, and the movement speed has been reduced. So just straight nerfs to him, and he's probably still going to be okay, but he was kind of falling off a little bit, but definitely well-deserved nerfs. Gyrocopter base strength has been increased. This hero sucks ass if he's not with Io, so I could see why they're buffing him. Huskar attack point has been reduced, so I believe attack point would mean... So if his attack point is reduced, then that means he's got 0.3 until he goes to the backswing of his attack. So this is a buff in you know, these words. I think that's a buff. But the attack speed has been reduced on the lower levels of Berserker's Blood. So he's actually better in terms of attack speed once you level him up. But he's not as great in the early game. Life Break and cost has been changed. Not that big of a deal because it hurts him as well. And then, well, then again, you know, he wants to be hurt, but it's such a slight change. And then the 15 talent has been changed, so it's 10 DPS to the Burning Spears instead of 15. So slight nerf to him there, but buff in the sense of the attack speed in the late game. Invoker base damage has been increased. That's great. His early game sucked ass. This makes Quas Wex a lot better, especially because the Exort bonus damage has been, I believe, reduced. So 3 giving you... Okay, so Bonus damage has been reduced from 4 to 28, 3 to 27. It's like slightly nerfed, but made up for in the base attacks, base damage. Invoker level 10 talent changed from Tornado Lift Time, which nobody would go, to 30-second Ghost Walk cooldown. That's a pretty big deal because this spell is a really long cooldown and can like overlap itself if you reduce the cooldown. It can already do that, but now you can do that like you can Ghost Walk and then have Ghost Walk ready for when a fight is going to occur. So Io has been removed from Captain's Mode. So Tether now transfers health and mana when Io is at max HP and mana points. Overcharge now has an 18-second cooldown, 8-second duration, no longer has a 2-second toggle. So Overcharge now costs mana to cast and no longer costs health and mana per second. So this is interesting. This is like a huge buff to Io, especially when you consider that the relocate has been, the cooldown has been reduced significantly, and then the delay is now a delay instead of a cast time. So like Io is now broken again and removed from Captain's Mode, and Overcharge has just been reworked to essentially be just as good, but just something different. So this hero's broken. That's great. Io was broken again, but removed from Captain's Mode. I'm kind of sick of seeing that hero first pick, first ban, so that's great. Jakir, level 10 talent, has been changed, 300 attack range, which is absolutely ridiculous to get as a level 10 talent. I would actually say this hero is legitimately probably a good core now. And 15 talent from 300 attack range to 40% XP gain, which is more XP later in the game. Juggernaut, base armor reduced by 1. Omni Slash no longer lets you TP away. People really weren't doing that much anyway, but Healing Ward movement speed has been reduced. It's easier to kill. Omni Slash cooldown has been increased. This hero's like one of the top carries in the current patch, so I could see why they nerfed him, but he hasn't had that much time to shine, so it's a little sad. Keeper of the Light, 10 talent now is 30% XP gain, so he can get higher level quicker, which maybe makes him a good core, maybe makes him just good farming for. Level 15 talent, 30% XP gain to 1 plus Will-O-Wisp health count, which definitely helps it a lot, because like if there's 1 hit left, it'll still pull people in, and then they can't attack when they're pulled in, so that is actually pretty significant. And then Kunkka level 25 now is 60% Tidebringer cleave, which is better. I don't know why they would buff Kunkka, but that's better, and he does get level 25 because he's a core. Legion Commander, base movement speed increased. This is insane because her Q ability gives her movement speed percentage, so base movement speed, like she's going to be speedy, man. And then 35 movement speed, so they didn't really nerf this 20 talent that much either. And yeah, this hero's going to be real speedy, but one of the worst heroes in Dota right now, so I can see why they changed this. Level 25 talent is now 350 AoE press the attack. Honestly, that's not that big of a deal because like the other talent is so good, giving you like 60 damage per duel. It's absolutely ridiculous. Leshrac Diabolic Edict now does more damage in the earlier levels and later levels, but the level 25 talent has been nerfed. Buff to Leshrac, I think he's a pretty good offlaner and pretty good mid. CCNC plays him a lot. Lich, Frost Shield has been nerfed in the early levels, which is great. Did way too much damage reduction anyway. Chain Frost damage has been nerfed in the early levels, and then the level 25 talent is a little bit better with the slow on his attacks, which is so stupid, but slight nerfs to Lich in the early game, still a great hero. Lifestealer base movement speed 15 increased. That's great for him. Base armor increased by 2, making him better in the early game. He really sucked in the early game, and that was kind of his whole shtick, so this is definitely great for him. And then the movement speed talent has been reduced by 5, so this hero is just 10 faster, which is great for him, especially if he picks up phase boots and gets that extra 2% movement speed or whatever it is. Leyna base damage increased by 3. This hero is probably a little underrated right now. People just suck with her and are feeding, but 3 extra base damage on an incredible laning hero is very, very effective in and of itself. Lion, level 10 talent, cast range increased. Level 15 talent, gold increased. So just buffing Lion, like they really want people to play Lion, and he is not getting picked. He's probably already a good hero, especially with the change to Finger. Lone Druid Spirit Bearer now runs at lightning speeds, and the attack damage has been increased so that even if you don't get items on the bear, it's still going to do a shitload of damage, almost 100. And then the level 25 talent, the 20 talent has been changed to 0 Entangle cooldown, which is very, very good, even if you don't go for the bear build. And that's at level 20, so it's pretty early in the game. And the level 25 talent is 0.5 seconds minus to the attack time on the bear, so that's great for bear build, but people would pretty rarely go for that anyway. Luna, level 10 talent increased from 200 cast range to 300 cast range. This is a buff to Yapsor, support Luna. Lycan, base movement speed increased. Great, because he doesn't go boots. Wolf's armor reduced. Wolf's magic resist reduced. But their health has been increased to kind of make up for it. And I think this is actually better for them, especially considering you get armor from the Howl, and you get more regen from the Howl as well. So yeah, Lycan is definitely in a pretty good spot right now. Medusa, the Mystic Snake, for some reason bounced to spell immune units. I don't know why this was the case. Like, that just didn't make any sense. So she doesn't get that anymore. 10 talent reduced. 15 talent reduced. The Mana Steal, level 20 talent, is now -4 second on Mystic Snake cooldown. That's a pretty big nerf to her because you would have to wait so long to get that 700 mana talent. And the 25 talent has been changed to plus 1,000 mana. So now she can get way tankier at level 25. But guess what? You have to essentially sacrifice the fact that you can't go for that attack modifier talent. So like people would go for that every single game before. So this is a huge nerf to her. She's a late game hero. So but anyway, fuck Medusa. Beep up base movement speed increased by 10. This is great because all of his little meat bats get to movement speed. And yeah, this hero was pretty good before. This will help him in his farming speed as well in the jungle. Mirana, Sacred Arrow. Movement speed actually increased on that. I never thought that I'd see the day where the movement speed on Hook or Arrow would get changed, but that's a huge buff to her because Arrow is like one of the best abilities in Dota, one of the best abilities in like any game. Morphling strength gain has been increased, so every 3 levels you're essentially going to get 1 extra strength, which you can morph to agility and get damage or get the HP and magic resist, etc. 15 talent has been changed to 20 seconds on morph duration, so morph is just straight buffed, and that hero is already like relatively good. Naga Siren base movement speed by 5 increased. Mirror image duration has been increased as well, which is great because that'll give her, once if she gets like an Arc Dream Core or something like that, overlap on her mirror images. She can actually have like 8 illusions or something like that up with this spell at once, which is kind of crazy. The damage taken on the illusions has been reduced to 400%, so they no longer are just easily killable in the early levels. And Naga Siren 20 talent has been increased to -7 seconds in snare cooldown. So like this hero honestly is just good as like a core or support. I think she's definitely underrated, and with these buffs, like she's a little bit better. I think probably 1 or 2 patches from now we'll see her getting picked. Nature's Prophet, you can now tango a Sprout Tree and get 2x regen. Not that big of a deal for him because he's an offlaner right now, and you just TP home and get full mana and HP, so it doesn't matter. 20 talent changed, 4 second Sprout cooldown. Also, actually, this is kind of like a nerf because like if you put somebody in trees and then they tango through, it's like you're giving them a shitload of regen. So you actually have to be careful with this spell now. So 20 talent changed from 4 second Sprout cooldown to 25% cooldown reduction. That's a pretty big deal. Cooldown reduction on his TP, on his ultimate. Like maybe we're gonna see Bulldog Ag's build coming out. Necrophos, Death Pulse damage increased from 100 to, so now it's just 250 at max level and instead of 220, that's a huge buff to him. The only issue is like he requires so many levels right now. You have to play him in the mid lane, otherwise like you don't have levels in the Ghost Shroud and enough to sustain your regen from the Heartstopper and enough to do damage with Death Pulse. Like I saw this hero get picked in the major, and it looked okay, but it was given a lot of space to get some levels. Night Stalker Hunter in the Night is now buffed in terms of movement speed. Scepter has been removed, but Dark Ascension now provides the full unobstructed vision. This is amazing. Like this hero already was pretty good and just super underrated in Immortal bracket. People didn't give it a chance, and I think this is gonna be great. 15% lifesteal makes him a little bit more of like a core hero. Maybe we'll see the Moo core Night Stalker coming out. Nyx Assassin, base movement speed increased, strength gain increased. This guy's going to be so tanky and so fast. Like, this hero definitely is great when you go for the Aghanims build. And then level 10 talent, 60 GPM to 90. Alright, this hero is great. This hero is amazing for sure. Like, that was already such a good GPM talent that it would be, you could make an argument for picking him. Nyx Assassin, level 10 talent, Spell Amp, doesn't matter. You're going to go GPM. Ogre Magi, Fire Blast cooldown reduced. Multicast 2x chance is now 70%. Lots of ding dings coming out from this hero. I love this hero, so I'm glad. Omni Knight Heavenly Grace is no longer complete dog shit. Status resistance is now 50%, which is actually a little bit worse, but I mean, technically speaking, the status resist used to be 100% because it was just full magic resist, so you couldn't put statuses on somebody. Omni Knight Heavenly Grace duration has been increased to 10, and now it provides bonus strength. So this is actually like, this is awesome. This is really great. So you're gonna make somebody real tanky by putting this on them. It actually does something that's potentially better than the previous spell. Omni Knight mana cost was reduced on the Heavenly Grace, so that's good because that spell was kind of awful. OD's Sanity's Eclipse nerfed in terms of the damage multiplier, and then the talent gives less movement speed. The hero's still going to be good. Pangolier base damage increased by 4. It's been pretty low, so that's good for him. Pangolier 10 talent, the movement speed has been changed to Swashbuckle / range. That is absolutely amazing. It's a level 10 talent, so it's actually significant, and people will definitely go for that. That is like going to make him so hard to kill. Phantom Assassin rearranged her talents to essentially just straight nerf her because she's been really good for a long time, and the great talent was the triple Stifling Dagger, and that's at 25 now, so pretty big nerfs to her. Phantom Lancer 10. The 10 talent has been increased in terms of evasion. Nobody would really go for that. And then level 20 talent has been increased the Juxtapose Illusions. Slight buff to him, not that big of a deal though. Phoenix Sunray can no longer move forward while rooted. Slight nerf to him. Surprising because he's not picked all that much. Pudge, base damage increased by 6. This is awesome. Like, I feel like I could maybe play this hero as a core now because, dude, he has so much base damage. This guy just like 70 damage, but we'll see. We'll see. If it's enough to like not get snowballed on in the laning phase, the hero might be good. But if you're still getting snowballed, he's kind of awful. So Queen of Pain, mana cost has been reduced on the screen, which is great because she spams it out. And the damage on her Shadow Strike has been increased, surprisingly, even though it already did so much damage. Razor attack backswing has been reduced. So essentially this means there's 0.3 seconds now where Razor is going to be able to attack where he wouldn't be able to attack before. Before you could do other actions in the attack backswing because you just cancel it. But now you can actually attack quicker, so he basically has more attack speed. And then Razor has an increased health talent at level 10, which is awesome because the other talents, the agility, and everybody would go for that. So Ricky base damage increased by 4, makes him better at roaming. Base movement speed increased by 5, makes him better at roaming. And then level 20 talent has just been increased in the backstab multiplier, which people wouldn't really go for that. People would go for the other one, which is like the jump range, I think. And that's pretty... You'll probably still go for the jump range. It's just too far. Rubric Telekinesis has been reduced in terms of the lift duration, and then the level 15 talent has been increased in terms of the hero attack damage, which is a slight nerf to Rubric, I think. Maybe this 15 damage will be significant. I doubt it. Sand King Burrow Strike damage has been increased, so it's more in the early levels, which means that you are less punished for going for less points in it, which I think people wanted to do to max out the Sandstorm anyway. And by the way, Sandstorm has also been buffed in the earlier levels, so this is definitely great for the hero. The build that people were doing before was nerfed. Shadowfiend, Presence of the Dark Lord. The armor reduction has been increased slightly. That hero is already pretty good, so we'll see. People don't really go for that early, or if you do, you get flamed for it. Shadow Shaman, 20 talent, 3 seconds shackle duration to 2.5 second. Doesn't matter. Silencer last word cooldown doesn't really matter. It's just been reduced in the early levels. It really doesn't matter that much. Like, this hero's still got its weaknesses. Level 10 talent, 1+ armor. Scarlet Mage Mystic Flare deals damage to creeps if there are no other heroes around. This is not useful. Like, you're just using half your mana pool to fucking do like 30% of the HP on each creep. It's not that great. I mean, I guess you could like snipe range creeps, but for 600 mana, it doesn't seem like it's worth it. Slardar, level 25 talent, reduced from 1.5 seconds. Slithering Crush to 1.25 seconds. He wouldn't really get 25 that often, so not that big of a deal. Slark Pounce no longer deals any damage, which, I mean, it kind of did insignificant damage anyway. I think the buffs to Slark still make him good in like the previous patch, but in any case, Sniper Headshot now knocks you back, which is definitely interesting. That is no longer a talent. That's pretty nice for him. I think this hero was already getting picked against like the Medusas, and looking pretty good, and I think with this change is it's something. It's adding something to the hero that was never there before, or costed a talent, but now it's just like for free, so that's pretty nice. Like, it's gonna make him a lot better. And then Shrapnel Slow instead of Shrapnel DPS, which is definitely good because Shrapnel already killed like an entire creep wave. Spectre has now more strength gain, which is great for her because, this hero has so much effective HP, so getting strength gain on a late game hero that wants strength is going to be great. Spectral Dagger now gives you increased movement speed by 2% at each level, and the talent has been reduced to plus 18% to make up for that. So, yeah, straight buff to her in the early game, essentially. Storm Spirit Electric Vortex mana cost has been reduced in terms of, mana cost. Level 10 talent has been changed to overload damage instead of damage. This hero sucks. Still, like, one of the worst heroes in Dota. Sven, base movement speed increased by 15. Why? Why would you do that? Sven Warcry health changed from 2.5x your strength, plus 170 instead of 440. Like, Doug, this hero's still going to be great, especially consider the fact that the ulti gives you strength. This hero is like arguably going to be better, probably better as a carry, better than he was as a carry before because you would get more strength as a carry, but still, like, more movement speed on this hero, more and now like the shield now scales with your strength. Like, this is pretty good. I mean, you're not going to get the 440, but you'll get close. It's like the Centaur changes, but 15 movement speed. Why? Stormhammer cooldown has been increased. Doesn't matter that much because you didn't have mana to just constantly spam it out in the early game anyway. Sven, the hammer damage has been reduced. That's definitely a pretty big deal, but it still scales to be roughly the same thing. So if you max it out first, it's great. Remote Mind's mana cost has been reduced. So this is great for techies because, like, 10 mana for techies, the amount of mana that you spend in a game, it's so effective to give him any amount of mana cost reduction. And I thought this hero was still pretty good in the previous patch. People just don't know how to play it. TA, Meld debuff is now applied, so when you do the attack, it actually does the damage instead of just after you do the meld and do the damage, you have the minus armor. But the damage is no longer increased by spell amp. Who cares? 3 psionic traps. We now have 15% evasion, which that's actually kind of a nerf because the psionic traps were really, really good. Going for the 3 extra traps, just getting vision everywhere. Templar Assassin level 15 talent from 7 armor to 25 movement speed. That's great because armor doesn't really matter that much for her because you just are tanky because of your what's it called, the shield. You know, it's like you take no damage. You don't need armor. Terrorblade strength reduced and the strength gain reduced as well. Thank God, that hero's been good for way too long. Tidehunter, Anchor Smash damage reduction reduced in the early game, so he feels way less tanky, a little bit easier to kill in the laning phase. Reactive armor bonus armor is less. Reactive armor bonus health is less. And the max stacks has been increased. So this is great because like it's very hard to get up to 24 stacks, even on a creep wave. So this is like a nerf to Timbersaw's early game and just feeling unkillable in the laning stage. If you get him before he has the stacks, like he's killable for sure. Whirling Death bonus damage has been increased slightly though, so yeah. And then the 20 talent has been increased to 15% cooldown reduction instead of 10%, which is definitely good on this hero. Tiny Avalanche AoE has been reduced in the early levels, but still scales to be the same thing. And then Avalanche cooldown has been increased to 26 to 14. So it's like very slight nerfs to Tiny. He's still great because you max out Avalanche, I think. And it's going to be the same thing when you max it out. And then we have less avalanche damage at level 15, and then which doesn't really matter. People are going for Orm build on him anyway. And then the 15 talent is 350 health to 400 health. So I really genuinely think like a lot of these heroes are just the same. Like these aren't big enough nerfs to make the broken heroes not broken. Treant Protector damage block has been increased slightly, which is fantastic because that includes reductions. So 100 is actually like way higher than 100. And then Treant Protector Scepter now causes the overgrowth to deal damage on the hero as well. And like, why was it just enchanted trees before? I don't get that. And then we have the Treant Protector overgrowth duration has been increased at all levels by 0.25, and then the Leech Seed damage is now plus 50 instead of plus 40. He doesn't get level 20 anyway, so whatever. But Troll Warlord now has so that's a little bit of a buff to tree, but he's with the rework to his invis, he's like a really weak hero basically. Troll Warlord 15 talent has been increased to 90 Whirling Axes damage, and the level 20 talent has been increased to 25% evasion. So like this hero was already starting to get picked. I'm surprised they buffed it, but such a slight buff. Tusk Tag Team Slow reduced a little bit. The mana cost has been increased pretty significantly in the early game, and the cooldown has been increased significantly, and that's great because the hero's picked in every single game, so that's good. Underlord base movement speed increased by 5. You give any of these like tanky frontlining offlaners movement speed like Sven, Underlord, they're going to be much better because they can definitely use that to kite you, and it essentially gives them effective HP because you have to close the gap on them. Undying level 15 talent changed to 30 Tombstone zombie damage, and then Tombstone Death is level 20. This is a big nerf to him because that was like one of the best talents in the game, is that Tombstone Death, and now you get it later. Ursa base movement speed increased by 15. That is interesting because like this hero got movement speed increases in every single patch in like the last like 3 patches. It's kind of crazy. But the damage on Fury Swipes is reduced, so you basically have to max his spell first. But he's like pretty insane in the laning phase for just chasing people down. I really think this hero is great. I think this hero is probably a really good offlaner. Any side lane where you're going to actually have that room to chase people, he's going to be great. Not a great mid laner, but definitely a great offlaner and side laner. Venge now has -6 seconds on the magic missile cooldown. Doesn't matter that much. Level 20 talent. Venomancer strength gain increased, so he's going to have 20 extra HP every 3 levels or something like that. Viper Nether Toxin AoE increased again, so he's going to farm a lot better with that, and it's harder to just run around on the creep wave. Remember, this applies a break as well, so this is great for him. And then the damage has also been increased from 30 to 75, so they really want people to use this spell, and I think Viper's a great hero. I honestly do. So Visage cast range reduced. Visage level 20 talent, 60 Familiar's movement speed to 50, and then 15 Soul Assumption damage per charge to 20 at level 20. So slight nerfs to Visage. Probably it's like this hero's like the highest win rate hero in Immortal bracket, so I get the nerfs. Warlock base damage increased by 2, makes him better for trading in the lane. Warlock Chaotic Offering attack damage has been increased relatively significantly, 25 damage. And then the Golem backswing is now 0.57. So once again, just like Razor, this means that there's like 0.3 seconds where now you can attack that you couldn't before. Weaver, level 10 talent from 7 strength to 75 Sakuchi damage. oh my god, the experience gain is just way too good. Like, it's so good that they need to nerf that if they want people to go for any other talent at level 10, in my opinion. This might make Weaver like a good support, but even as a support, you want the XP. Level 15 talent is now 14 strength, which is definitely pretty good. Like, people would go for the strength before, but I believe now you have to choose between that and the diffusal damage or the mana break, which was very, very good. So it's kind of changing talents people won't go for anyway because the other ones are just so good. Windranger, 15 talent, now just straight up 25 more attack range. 15 talent, 25 more power shot damage. Great for her. She's like one of the worst heroes in Dota. Winter Wyvern, Cold Embrace, base HP regen has been increased per level. And then the Cold Embrace mana cost has been reduced to be less in the early game. Very slight buff to him. Witch Doctor Maledict cooldown has been reduced significantly, so you can cast it on like every creep wave now. Level 10 talent, 1 more armor. Wraith King movement speed increased by 15. Once again, tanky frontlining offlaner. Give it a bunch of movement speed. I actually think Wraith King's gonna be really good, especially now because the skeletons respawn. Like, this hero is legitimately probably underrated right now. Potentially good, like Vlad's building, Aura building offlaner. Zeus reworked static field. This is one of the biggest changes to me. This the fact that now it affects enemies directly affected by your abilities. Because now if you ulti, you're gonna hit everybody with static field on the map. Depending on how much HP they have, you could do like 100, 200 extra damage with that, which is just absolutely unreal for just doing shitloads of damage in fights. And the thing is, like, you wouldn't stand close to people on Zeus anyway. You would hit people from far away with the Ether Lens. Even you'd use the Aghanim Scepter to hit people in fights. Like, you'd never be close to them to get that static field. So this is absolutely amazing for him. I think Zeus is great. But basically, all in all, I know this was long and I wanted to do it quickly, but at least we're under an hour. But in any case, like, I really think that in general, like, all the heroes that were really strong in the previous patch are still going to be strong. However, there's going to be like minus maybe 1 or 2 of them that we won't see. I'm not 100% sure what heroes it's going to be. And then there's going to be like +3 extra heroes that are now considered ubiquitously broken. Like maybe Zeus, maybe Wraith King. Sven's still going to be good. Beast is still going to be good. But I would say, like, with this patch, don't get overwhelmed by all of the changes and just fucking play the old heroes. You'll probably win a lot, to be totally honest. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in another video.